Hello and welcome. Today we've got Gene Decode, and today we are going to be discussing the ceasefire in Gaza, Ukraine, Chuck Schumer, and Congress. Now, just before we begin, you can subscribe to my Instagram channel at nicholas.veniamin, where you can follow all my daily news reels. Gene, thank you so much for joining me. How are you, and what have you been up to?
Eating too much, talking too long, not getting enough sleep, busy.
Well, that's good. It sounds like good.
So we have Thanksgiving in the U.S. So I fully partook, and now I'm busy trying to catch up on my sleep.
That's good. I'm glad that you've had a great celebration, and I wish you a happy Thanksgiving along with the viewers who are listening today. Okay, great. So let's get into it. So you want to talk about the ceasefire in Gaza. What is it exactly that you'd like to share with the viewers today?
So most people do not understand what has happened, what caused it all, why it caused it all. Have not really understood. I've gone into the history of the the region and how the Gaza Strip has been since 2007 the largest open air prison, or just say call it what it is, concentration camp in the history of the world. And in that, they have been abused, killed, murdered, children shot, stolen, women, old men. Their property, especially on the West Bank, is just stolen. If people come in from, for example, U.S., they'll just steal their property and give it to them. So who exactly, at what point, when you're having those kind of atrocities committed on your people on a daily basis for 16 years now, at what point do you stand up, and how do you stand up? How do you make the world? They have been trying. How do you make the world wake up? And they had three basic things. And one of them, of course, is a two-state solution. Mm-hmm. Two is get freedom so they can go in and out. They can, trade and travel with the West and to the West. But who's standing up for them? Yes, Erdogan is saying things that says this. The Muslim nations are. But who really says, yes, backs the two-state solution, backs they get their borders open, backs all of these things? Nobody was. So how do you wake up? They've been trying. Obviously, politics isn't waking up. To go in and exactly how did they go in? The most protected border on earth, that if a cat bumps the fence, they could alarms go off, all kinds of stuff. They could scramble a few F-16s over there. Under 2 minutes, they could be on top of it. Why didn't they? Where were the guards on the fence? How come they didn't notice the alarms and the fence inductance being changed because the fence is being opened? Because they have all of that tech on it, and all their forces in the IDF in that area were called off. And now, as we have seen, there's a person that was IDF that is saying that they were told, high-ranking military, way up in the IDF, was told and had intel that they were coming. So obviously they knew. Obviously they pulled their forces off. Quite aptly, the West has said that's their 911, which obviously with our 911, the Pentagon especially, no way, that's the most guarded airspace on Earth. A craft of commercial flight that has a tail squawk is with IFF, identify friend or foe, is way off course and heading for that airspace and is in that airspace. F-16s have standing ready and orders on 3 airstrips near there, 2 of them standing on the runways with their engines running, waiting to scramble. And if they don't get the word from the tower, one single code word for the day, they scramble themselves. Standing written orders. Same thing in Israel. They have standing written orders. They did not follow them. That means court-martial. And if people died, it could mean death, treason. That's not happening. That means it was told and written not to happen. The forces guarding it were told not to happen. And they go in and in like and kind to what they have been going through for 16 years, did the same thing in Israel. I don't support killing, but how else? There comes a point. How else, if you have an implacable enemy that will continue and continue until every man, woman, and child, every one of your families, every one of your friends are dead? They have stated that is their goal. The big ruling parties that are Bibi Netanyahu and all this, their goal is one Israel over that entire area. Like they say, it came from Israel, the statement first, from the river to the sea, that will be Israel. That was not Hamas. That was not the Palestinians. That was the current ruling classes, Israel's mantra, from the river to the sea. So how do you make the world wake up? You have to do something so pronounced that the world will wake up and say, something needs to be done. This is terrible. And you need to get to where it makes obvious what they've done before, going to bomb thousands of people in Israel. The IDF goes and bombs and kills thousands of people in the Gaza Strip. This isn't the first time. Now they see, because you suddenly had something massive first happen in Israel. So people go, oh my goodness. And so you have the people of the world, exactly what Hamas wanted. Wake up, two-party state, give us our freedom. All of the other, there's three basic components. If you watch Scott Ritter, he goes into this on Through the Eyes with Anya, a excellent expose on this. And now they are woke up. So I highly recommend everyone go to Through the Eyes, a woman that's quite often in Moscow, or I think she's from Poland, interviewing Scott Ritter and doing an expose on this. So, that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about, so people understand what's really going on. Hamas is the only people. That is their government. That's the only one. So now they have a ceasefire. And before that, they wouldn't even say the word ceasefire. They wouldn't, even the CNN and the BBC published articles, the C word. You can't even write it or say it. And now they're actually saying it. There's about a 6-day, or it can extend 10 days. Or, I forget the exact number of days. Sorry, I've been partying too much. For every 10 extra hostages that are traded, they get an extension to that ceasefire. That should make people go, traded with whom? With whom are the Israel hostages in Palestine being traded for? Women and children and old men in IDF in Israel prisons. Some children that are 10 that have been prisoners since they're 3.
So, Gene, let me ask you, what was happening at the Gaza Strip during the presidency of Donald Trump?
What was happening when?
In the Gaza Strip.
Same pretty much thing.
What,
it's been before Trump, before Obama. It's been going on for 16 years. That's quite, you go by presidencies in the U.S. 4 years at a time. You've got a few presidencies included. Trump inherited it.
But did it stop during Trump's presidency?
Remember, Israel is for last.
Yeah.
That's why it didn't stop.
And why do you think that Israel has to be last? Is it because there's going to be a lot of chaos, so they're leaving the worst to the end?
Yeah, you have to have the world woken up first. You can't do that, or you wind up with exactly what Albert Pike had written, which is Albert Pike was a Civil War general. In his time, he was Lord Matriarch, or the ruler of the Satanic Boys Club, whatever you want to call it, Aryan Club or Satanist Club for the entire earth.
So you say...
Sorry, he wrote a document called Morals and Dogma, in which to get the world into a one world order, a new world order, like Hitler wrote about. And so in that, he said that we had to have three world wars. The first would start as it did and do what it did, and that would bring down, like it did, the monarchies, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, etc. Then there would be a League of Nations, which that failed because of the Tsar. So they eradicated the Tsar and their family. And they started the Second World War, which started how they said it would, did what they said it would. And then the third, that would allow them to create an Israeli state in the Palestine area. And that would lead to the Third World War, in which they would balkanize the world into Muslim, the crescent against the cross, and it would wind up into an all-out Third World War that would allow them to have that one world government forever. And so the only way to stop that from happening that way is you have to have the world woken up to this evil. You have to have the world woken up to what has eaten up, swallowed, and taken control of the United States and the Western world, of Europe, the UK, the Five Eyes, all of it.
So do you feel that now that we've begun with Israel, since they say Israel's last and we need the majority of people woken up, is that the case then, that we are now at that last precipice and that a lot of people have woken up to the degree where we can begin with Israel? What do you think about that?
Yeah, because it's obvious, because they've been saying for a while and been wanting for a while to reinstitute the lockdowns, but they haven't happened. They've been saying there's another 19 strain, that hasn't, another coup strain. That hasn't happened. People haven't bought that either. They've been doing all this stuff. And now with Ukraine, they're saying another 106 billion, and they can't get it through Congress. And the 61 billion of that's supposed to be for Ukraine, but it's held up by the fact, that Chuck Schumer said, I believe he's the Democrat majority leader, said that the reason is the Republicans are insisting on money, for the southern border to deal with the terrible situation on the U.S. southern border. And we have to get this money to Ukraine, to Israel, and to Taiwan. In other words, a three-front war. And they don't want money to the southern border unless it's money to fly people coming over all over the countryside and get them settled in and a nice little home to live in, and their few $1,000s a month handout. So the situation has gotten to where people are realizing the truth. The Republicans won't put that bill through. Viktor Orban recently just said that in a speech that was published in the World News newspaper, that the whole idea of Ukraine was to fund the Ukrainians to fight, to cause regime change in Russia so that Russia could be tucked into the EU. And essentially, in other words, then they would balkanize Russia, divide it up, take all of its resources like they do for the EU countries. They become satellites of the United States, and the other countries of the Five Eyes just eat up all their property, their resources, everything else, and enslave their people to the will of the neocons. And this is exactly what Orban is saying is the goal, and that now that has failed. For him to say that out loud, it has failed. It will not happen. It cannot happen. And there's many, many publications that are saying, for example, Richard Haas, who is for a decade the president of the Council on Foreign Relations. Now you're talking the real cabal. He even said there's no silver bullet, no miracle weapons that can be sent to Ukraine to give them, and amounts of ammo doesn't matter, and weapons doesn't matter, because they don't have an army anymore. They don't have enough people, and they're now word that there's going to be a mass mobilization. It actually has already started in Ukraine, where they have mobilized to inscript anyone over the age of 17 and below the age of 70, men, women, and essentially that's children as far as I'm concerned. A 17-year-old, you're going to teach them in that country. Yeah, African 17-year-olds who are rough and tough. Yeah, but Ukrainian or European or U.S., give me a break. Not going to happen. So and it's pretty much known and proven. Like I said, already in process, they had a woman they rescued out of a trench who was giving childbirth, a Ukrainian woman, and she was screaming, "Don't shoot me! I'm giving birth."
Yeah.
You know, I at least save my child. This is what is now going on in Ukraine. Literally, like they say, as long as it takes to the last Ukrainian has become the saying, and the world knows it. They know this is the situation. Viktor Orban to say that in public, for the world news to publish what the president for a decade of the CFR, you're talking real cabal is admitting it now. The real leaders of this satanic cabal are saying it. So it has come out, and now you can have the situation in Israel start to really happen and get cleaned up there.
So what exactly do the White Hats want to happen in Israel when they say Israel lost? What exactly do they want the outcome to be?
A two-party state where like what Hamas wants. And again, remember what Hamas is and how and where it began. It began in Egypt from the Muslim Brotherhood, was funded by the Israel government, trained by the Mossad to be the best special forces group on earth, by the best special forces group on earth, to be equal to them with their signals, their hand-to-hand combat, their warfare techniques, guerrilla warfare techniques, everything. And they are. And so because they wanted to get rid of the PLO, and they did. They're a proxy for them to get control of Palestine, to be able, but they were Muslims, so they turned on, or used to start the conflict. I would say a combination thereof, and then they turned on the Israeli government, which has got a huge split. You have the traditional, I think it's called Zolar or something, party, which Bibi Netanyahu, who's an incredibly high-level criminal, is fighting like heck not to be removed because he would wind up in prison for all of the things he's done. But that party wants to have essentially what they interpret the Bible as saying, as an Israel in the Holy Land that is the entire thing. But what the alliance wants to honor is that the people that were there before Rothschild, at the beginning of World War II, started the moves of the transfer agreement and these other things to set up Israel.
So basically, they want to get rid of the deep state in Israel.
Yes, because that's the center. That is their fortress on earth. That is, excuse me, swallowed wrong. Hold on. That is where, that is where they fight and rule from. They have massive tunnel networks under there. The Draco and everything, their primary hub on earth is there for where their queen is right now. That on each world they have a prime queen they leave behind. Even if they all leave, I found out they still leave her behind. They have a massive tunnel network there. That is their fortress from which they rule.
So you're saying that in Israel, they have most of their deep state technology, underground tunnels that they deal with, more than the United States, more than Europe has ever had, and more than anywhere in the world. Israel is, it's buried in deep state assets and tunnels and trafficking and laundering. And is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's the state of the United States. They call it the state of Israel. We've been supporting them from the get-go.
So Israel is are you saying that Israel is a U.S. soil?
Yes, it's a U.S. state.
So when we say there's 52 states, that's not part. You're not saying Israel is included in that 52, are you?
I am. 52 states. Israel is one of the is the 51st state.
Interesting. Wow.
And that's why you see a tunnel when they cleaned out the Vatican. Where's that tunnel go? Jerusalem.
So the white hats now, what they want to make it that it doesn't belong to the United States, give the land back to whoever whoever it belongs to.
Give Israel back to the Hebrews.
The Hebrews.
That's not who's running Israel. The Hebrews. The Zionists are running it. Zionists are not Hebrew. A lot of Hebrews think, and Catholics and Christians especially, think they are. They're not. They're Satanists.
Yeah.
They worship Satan. They don't worship the one and only God of all creation and follow that, he had a son and any of that stuff. Yeah, their God had a son, the Christ. That's not the one that the Christians talk about. It's a totally different structure that has a totally different way of looking at life and other people. Christians believe in, the right for each person to worship the one and only God of all creation and worship and live in their way as long as they respect, certain dignities and respect of other people, of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, basically, thou shalt not kill, etc. They do that. That's not what a Satanist believes in. They believe in do as thou wilt.
Yeah. So I'm suspecting that really what's going on in Israel is the white hats are removing the Zionists, deep state cabal out of Israel, correct?
Precisely. And when a person says things like, it's us or them, that means one of two things. It means A, they are cabal, or B, they are cabal and they just don't know it. They've been brainwashed and they have the cabal ideology, us or them. In other words, in the goyim, in them all, because if we don't, they'll get us. And they are not us, and they are not even anything but animals. Get rid of them all.
So now we know the media, or they like to twist things, they like to lie and propaganda. Who are the white hats in this? Who the media is probably twisting and making it seem that the white hats are the bad ones and making the name.
I mean, Trudeau recently said some of the problems with Canada are due to MAGA. It's like, MAGA are U.S. and you're in Canadians. It's like everything is Trump, MAGA, and Putin's fault. Everything.
Yeah.
I can't get my homework in today, teacher, because of Trump, Putin, and MAGA.
I know it's terrible, but who are the white hats? Obviously, Hamas is the black hats, correct?
No. Hamas is a group of people fighting for their people with everything they can in the manner that their enemy has been destroying them to wake the world up to that fact.
So the mainstream media is making Hamas look like the bad people, okay? But are they really the bad people?
No. There's a faction of them that is in any group over 40 people, I guarantee you get a group of 40 people or more, the cabal will infiltrate it every single time with Satanists. And
because obviously the mainstream media is saying Hamas is, they're a terrorist organization. It's bad. And when the mainstream media says something like that, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, there has to be another story to this, because I don't believe the mainstream media. I mean, if it was up to them, they would make Trump be as bad as Hitler, portray him as the same kind of man as Hitler.
Yes, this is exactly how the cabal actually does work, is you always blame your enemy or your adversary of doing what you're doing. That's what they do. That's actually has been written, but it's been a doctrine of theirs, a method, a technique for thousands of years. It was in this last century has written down as part of their playbook is always blame. So if you see they say that Putin's guilty of war crimes, he's doing a surgical war, very refined, very low on in every war. There, war is war. People die in war, not just the armies. Innocents will die, but it has been of all wars the most remarkably low on the Russian side of innocent death and dying. And they said that they invaded and they've been, well, again, same thing. What choice did they have when, since the Maidan coup, 2014, the Ukrainian, military has been shelling and killing innocent men, women, and children in the Donbass. So what exactly, and the Russian people, if you speak Russian and you practice Russian, culture, you don't have rights there. What exactly do they do about it? Just let it happen until there are no more? And they now even admit, and Russia realized that was the case. Minsk 1, Minsk 2, Merkel and Stoltenberg, and pretty much all of them said it was just to build up Ukraine until they could, what Viktor Orban said, they could beat Russia, get Putin overthrown, replace him with a Western friendly so they could get it into the EU, balkanize it, tear it apart, divide it up. He didn't say the last part, but that's exactly what they want. There is I put in genedecode.org on a deep dive. It's not I did, but one of our European coordinators wrote up a decode about what all of the Ukraine situation is about, how there is a CIA document in the 50s of the different political groups, the geology, everything of Ukraine, and how they were going to come in and create the Banderite faction, the Azov, the Nazi faction, and they were going to build fortress cities and a fortress, essentially wall of cities along the Donbass, which Avdiivka is the last one. It's the only thing the Russians are doing is keeping it open so the Ukrainians can feed what's left of their third army in there. And so they, because their goal is not to take land, but to demilitarize. That's how do you demilitarize? How do you not kill civilians? Create an area that's open conflict. All the civilians are gone already. And then you let the enemy pour their forces in there and pour them in. You don't take that. You surround it and leave one road in and out. And they want it so bad, they won't let that land because they're all about land. Let's take this and show the West we're making headway. No, the whole goal is to demilitarize, or like their original goal was to defeat Russia, not necessarily demilitarize Russia, but it caused enough damage that it would overthrow Putin. You don't want to overthrow Putin because the next person in line is a war hawk, and he would have Russian military level Kiev. Yeah, they stormed Kiev with 40,000, a city of millions. You're not going to take it. It's just shock and awe.
Yeah.
And they did a peace treaty till Boris caved it down.
So if you believe Hamas is not bad, what are they actually doing? What do you think? What do you think they're doing in there?
They're waking the world up so that somebody will back the people of Palestine and say they deserve their own country and the right to travel and trade. I mean, lot of targets that the IDF is bombing. Thousands, over 10,000 people dead. Church parking lots, hospital parking lots, where people is overflowed in from the hospital into the parking lot. Thousands of years old. How is that a military target?
So you're saying that it's a strategy to wake people up. So because they've brainwashed us into, we can't talk about the Israelis and we have to, we can't say anything bad about them. But now they're trying to switch it the other way around, where they're shining the light on the Israelis, and we have to give back, the lands of Palestine.
Say again. You lost me. Sorry, I'm a little wigged out from Thanksgiving.
No, that's okay. Are you saying that it's a strategy that what Hamas is doing is a strategy to make to give credit to the Palestinians and not to the Israelis, to expose a deep state in Israel?
Basically more, yeah, that's where you lost me. It's to expose the Israelis for doing genocide to the Palestinian people. And it's kind of obvious if you look at the size of Palestine and the Gaza Strip.
But isn't it? Yeah, of course. I mean, although it does bring attention in that manner that you're saying, isn't it sad that Hamas is killing many civilians and children and women?
Well, now where is that happening? They did that in Israel. They're not in Israel now. They're not killing them now. It's the IDF that's killing them in Palestine. And how many compared? Is it an eye for an eye? Not even close. It's thousands for one.
And you're saying that the mainstream media is basically blaming it all on Hamas.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
I'm saying it. Look at what's happening in the Gaza Strip. Has been happening in the Gaza Strip since 2007. When Israel was first set up, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip were one piece. Are they now? Look at the size of the Gaza Strip since Israel started. It has been constantly shrinking. In other words, where's it been going? People have been getting killed, eradicated, their land stolen, compressed into smaller and smaller. It's the most populated piece of ground on earth. You have millions and millions of people in like postage stamp size. They're living on essentially, if you do how many people, you can't even go how many people by acre. You got to go how many people per square foot to really do the math. That is sad. That is wrong.
Absolutely. Well, Gene Decode, thank you so much for sharing all your views with us today. It's been a very interesting subject and conversation. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the viewers before we finish?
Have a wonderful holiday season, blessed holiday season, love and blessings, and envision peace for the entire world. And I'll have the envisioning that I in 17 platforms edited now that the Thanksgiving holiday is out. We'll have that out to all of the hosts. They have their recordings up. We'll have the edited recording with Hawaiians singing it really beautifully. We had some internet connections at the time, and we'll have that to all the platforms and up on our platform. Thank you, Nicholas, for having me here. God bless.
Always. Thank you very much, and God bless to you too. Thank you. Bye-bye.